all the work and amazing success. At our last Investor Day, Tim Sims was representing the inventory side of our business, and that's where he's grown up and spent most of his time at in our business, managing our inventory partnerships. You can imagine that job has changed dramatically as CTV has gone from almost 0% of our business to our largest channel. But of course, that's also changed as the relationship with SSPs has changed because their businesses have changed, and ad exchanges, and of course, complicated relationships with partners like Google. But Tim also has understood the advertiser side of our business, so we made a very bold move during the pandemic, which was to join our inventory and our revenue side of our business so that Tim could speak to our customers about the opportunities in inventory and especially in CTV. That's proven to be incredibly effective, and it's largely because inside of Tim Sims' head is an understanding of both sides of the ecosystem. So it's my pleasure to introduce Tim Sims.
All right. Hi, everybody. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Tim Sims. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of the Trade Desk. And as Jeff just mentioned, in that role, I do have a little bit of a unique remit in that I oversee all of our go-to-market partnerships on the client side of our business. And then I also oversee all of our partnerships on the supply side of our business, which includes how we work with all of the global media companies that we buy inventory from. So one way to think about inventory on our platform is if your company sells ads for a living, that's part of that team's remit. So another way of saying all of that in a sentence is that my role and I am responsible for all of our go-to-market partnerships across both our clients and our inventory partners. So today I want to spend the time just taking a little bit of a deep dive into how we continue to win share and how we are accelerating our position as a leader in CTV by leveraging what I believe is the most robust CTV platform on the planet. But first, I want to frame the conversation around the current state of the marketplace because as many have pointed out today, a lot has changed since the last time we all stood on this stage. So the marketplace right now in the media landscape is in flux. The land is kind of shifting under our feet. There's been massive change over the last couple of years, especially in CTV. We're seeing this shift from linear into digital, as represented by CTV. We're shifting to lighter ad loads in CTV, which means that those ad positions have to command a higher CPM, which comes from data-driven advertising, by the way. And all of that change, all of the shift that's happening in the landscape is great for companies like ours because we thrive in moments of change because when we take the focus and the vision of our company and apply it to moments like this, it gives us an opportunity to add value to our clients. And when we're able to add value to our clients, that's when we can grab land. So as a result, we continue to outpace the market. So the data that we're looking at here comes from one of our clients, IPG, and also eMarketer. But regardless of the data source that you look at or the benchmarks that you use over the last couple of years, we continue to outpace the market. But most importantly, as we kind of look out into the future and we think about the next several years, what do we see? And how are we going to continue to lead the marketplace? So for the next half hour or so, I'm going to spend most of that time explaining why I think we are better positioned than any company in the space to continue winning and to keep leading the way, especially in marketplaces like CTV. But all of that starts with this, which is a strong go-to-market strategy and a strong way that we take our offering to our clients. So a lot of time and energy is spent internally talking about just first order principles, right? Like what are the core pieces of our business that are just absolutely central to our success? So I'm going to unpack 3 of those today. The first principle is objectivity. Jeff talked about that. The second is our people. And the third is our obsession with accelerating change in our industry. So I'm going to go deeper into each of those, but I think what is amazing about all of those principles is that those principles are the same today as they were when I walked in the door at the Trade Desk almost 9 years ago. We've been so consistent in our vision for the last 13 years since the day Jeff started the company to the 9 years ago when I walked in the door, that all of these principles that we're going to talk about today, while continuing to be central to our business, have also been consistent. So I'll start with what I believe is the foundation. So of all of our central philosophies, of everything that we talk about, I don't think there is a single stronger central core than this one, which is our objectivity. So this is our biggest advantage in the market, and we won't put this at risk. And the reason we won't put this at risk is for a relatively simple fact, which is that, and this happens very often, I just sat with a brand yesterday and had this conversation, because we regularly sit across the table from the biggest brands, the biggest content owners, the biggest agencies in the world, and we can honestly look them in the eye and say our interests are aligned. I can help you decide between this impression and that impression without any conflict of interest. And that is extremely powerful for advertisers. Because if you think about it from the marketer's perspective, they are constantly getting pitched something along the lines of, hey, buy my inventory, here's why. And they're constantly getting pitched a non-objective point of view on the marketplace. Instead, we say, hey, let's look at the open internet. Let's look at those 11, 12 million ad opportunities per second, and let's help you decide which one is best for you. And let's use your data to do that. that objective position in the market is one of the biggest foundations of our business. Now, interestingly, that objectivity that we talk about a lot on the advertiser side cuts both ways. Because as Jeff mentioned, when I also have the opportunity or privilege to sit across the table from the largest media companies in the world, that objectivity cuts in both directions. Because when I sit across the table from a large content owner, when they look back from their vantage point at the landscape of people who do what we do on the demand side, there's a lot of complicated relationships out there. There's people who produce original content. There's people who distribute their content. There are people who wish the future looked like a world where an impression on a video filmed on your cell phone was the equivalent to an impression in an Emmy-winning drama. So when they look back at the landscape, it's very complicated for all of their potential partnerships. But when they look at the Trade Desk, they see a beacon of independence, and they see a beacon of objectivity, because they know our only goal as a company is to connect them and their content and the ad opportunities against their content to the demand on our platform. And as a result, they lean in. So the second foundation that I want to spend time on is our people. So I think a lot of people probably stand on stages like this and say things like, our people are our greatest asset. Now, I agree with that. However, I want to look at this through a slightly different lens, because I think what is more powerful is a group of people who believe in something. And this is why I think our people are so important. Jeff touched on this a little bit, but if a group of people organize themselves to achieve a goal against something that they believe in, that's the true power of a group of people. So I think what differentiates the group of folks who work at the Trade Desk is that we are all united behind one simple mission, and that is to empower the open internet. So we don't believe anyone wants an internet controlled by just a select few companies. We believe in empowering the entire open internet. That's our mission. And when you get a collection of people and you point them all at something that they believe in, that's the true power of our people. And in addition to that, we've maintained our commitment to bringing on more people into the company. So we've continued our pace of hiring, even in the face where, or even in an environment where others have not, because we believe our ability to invest in our people is our engine for growth. It drives and it fuels that collective inertia towards that goal. And we organize ourselves that focuses on our clients. So we've created distinct roles that really focus on different parts of our client's business. We have sales and business development people who bring new opportunities to our clients. We have account managers who help our clients understand and leverage the best of our platform. We have traders who bring detailed insights and optimization tactics to our clients so that they can get the most out of every dollar that they invest in the platform. And lastly, as our clients become more and more sophisticated, we have a technical account management team to help guide them as they build technical solutions on top of our platform. So in addition to all of that, in addition to the roles and responsibilities that we've created, I believe one of the most important things we do is that we build trust with all of our clients. Now that trust, as Jeff pointed out, is built on this foundation of objectivity. But we earn trust with our clients with every phone call, every engagement, every product release. And our clients, as a result, don't view us as vendors. They view us as partners. Because when we have all of these touch points across every engagement that we have with our clients, we're creating a collaborative environment and we're advising them on what to do. And so through that, our goal always, in every engagement, whether it's a client or someone who's an inventory partner of ours, the goal is always partnership. So as a result, that leads us to what I believe is one of our other core strengths as a business. We have created the world's largest portal into the open internet. So we've brought on hundreds of inventory and data partners. We've created a marketplace of measurement, as Samantha just pointed out. We've laid the foundation of addressability, targeting, and measurement, and all of that is so that we can maximize value for our clients and make sure that we're doing something that's going to help their businesses. Another way to look at that is like this, because all of those things that we do in the platform connect, from our first engagement with the customer, to the products that we build that Dave talked about, to the obsession we have about the supply chain and finding efficiencies in ways that we reach data and inventory, to the partnerships that we bring into the platform across measurement and data and inventory. All of those things connect, and all of this at every stage builds trust and creates value for our clients. Another way to look at that same paradigm is like this, in that we've created a flywheel for our customers' business. So when a client's strategy collides with the inventory, data, measurement, and all of these things that we bring to bear in the platform, that creates a virtuous cycle for our clients, where everything that they're doing is informing how they reinvest their media dollar on the next campaign. And our clients agree. So we continue to expand our client base and grab land. I think the reason we do this is because our clients value a trusted partner that is focused on the open internet. And really important to this is that our agency partners remain central to our strategy. Now, we've evolved and we've started to talk more to brands, but as Jeff pointed out, we do that arm in arm because the agencies are still a critical component. But often, when we go into those brand conversations, we're doing it arm in arm with the agencies because at the end of the day, they might be the ones executing the campaigns. Despite the fact that we might have an MSA or a JBP with that brand, the agency might still be involved as a hands-on keyboard element to execute the campaign. So that partnership today between the brand and the agency and the trade desk, has never been stronger. So as a result, we continue to go upstream. We continue to engage with more and more global brands, and we're structuring more long-term partnership frameworks to keep those partnerships accountable. We want to reach milestones together. We want to set goals for ourselves. We want to set ambitious goals that we want to do as partners, both on the business and on the product side. As Jeff mentioned, those often take the form of joint business plans, or JBPs. We've done a fantastic job of growing that part of our business over the last several years. But let me unpack what a JBP, or joint business plan, actually is for just a second. So, as I mentioned, it's really a framework for a partnership that often is done over a multi-year engagement where we set milestones for each other, for our partnership. Those milestones could look like spend targets on our platform. They could look like things like, how do we adjust the mix of spend over time to move it into a much more data-driven decision execution methodology? We could look at things like feature adoption and say, hey, you're a little light on certain features. How do we figure out how to migrate your business into using these features that are going to be good for your business? But we always want to do what I just said, which is that we want to structure these engagements all through the lens of what is right for the client's business. These are nearly all custom, right? Because we're looking at it through the lens of their business. There's no copy-paste, take the JBP we did for somebody else and give it to another brand. We want to make sure that all of these are designed specifically to bring value to that business because of what I said earlier. We're partners, we're collaborators, we're advisors. We want to be there with these clients to help their business succeed. Now, you might ask, well, what does that actually look like in practice? So here's an example. So this is a large financial services company, and this is a company that we didn't work with a few years back. So they came to us, and CTV was one of the big drivers of why they wanted to come and partner with the Trade Desk. They had amassed a pretty significant data asset. Activating that data asset on CTV was really, really important to them. So these new engagements often start with test budgets. So they'll come on for a couple of quarters and start to build. Then they'll start to find the value in that, and they'll start to ramp. Then we'll start to see growth over the course of a year. And at that point, once we've done everything that I just talked about, we've engaged with the business on all levels. We've understood exactly what they're trying to achieve. We've built things potentially for them that are custom to their business. At that point is when we start to think about what do the next 2 years look like? What do the next 3 years look like? And at that point, we engage with a joint business plan to set milestones and goals for our partnership, including accountability around what those next 2 or 3 years are going to look like. Another example looks like this, and this happens a lot, which is that a client will come to us with a test budget. In this case, they were really focused on decision CTV. Then they're likely doing this with other DSPs. So they're also testing a few others to see, hey, where should I place my bets as I think about CTV in this particular case? Then they'll take a quarter or so to kind of go through their evaluation process to determine who's the right partner to choose. And in this case, they came back to the Trade Desk because of the performance of CTV and decision data-driven CTV, and they said, you're the partner that we want to lean in with. And that's what's represented in the first quarter and second quarter of this year. And then from there on, we start to look longer term, and we start to figure out what's the right framework for that business. How do we create long-term accountability, long-term milestones for all of us in the form of JBPs? But everything is designed with this in mind. All of those JBPs, all of those client engagements are designed with this. How are we going to create a flywheel for our customers' business? Because if we help them succeed, then we succeed because our interests are aligned, because we're objective, and because we build trust. And as a result, we continue to grab share and we continue winning. Now, one of the amazing things about these core principles that we've talked about today, and even some of the things that I'm going to talk about later, is that all of these scale globally. When you think about concepts like objectivity, empowering the open internet, hiring great people to build trust and collaborate with our clients, that is true everywhere in the world. Now that we're able to kind of get back out into some of these markets around the world, everywhere I go, I'm just reminded of this fact constantly, which is that everything that we are doing as a platform is universal. Everywhere we go, these same principles, these same first-order principles are true because all of our partnerships are global. When we look at things like our holding company relationships and many of these JBPs, they are global in their structure, and so are we. Because we have this commitment to objectivity, data-driven media buying, building a scaled marketplace and a world-class product, all of those strengths are universal, and that foundation is strong. And so we continue to add offices where we think it's prudent. So just in the last 12 months, we've added an office in Milan, Stockholm, India, and we've expanded our operations in Australia to include an office in Melbourne. Now, in each of these cases, we often incubate from a hub. So if you think about somewhere like Melbourne or even Milan or Stockholm, we'll incubate that opportunity from Sydney or from London, and then once we believe it's the right time, we'll put feet on the ground. So we're always very deliberate in the choices we make. We're not throwing darts at a map. We're really being very deliberate where we know that there's a foundation of our business that we can continue to expand. And we do that because of this fact, because our partnerships have never been stronger on a global basis. I mentioned our JBPs and our global holding company agreements, but if you think about the supply side of our platform, we're engaging with people like Disney or NBC Universal, not just here in the United States, but globally as well. Disney owns Hotstar in India, so we're figuring out how that partnership can expand there. NBC Universal owns Sky, so what does that look like for our partnership with Sky across the whole of Europe? All of those opportunities are there because our partners think the same way we do. And this is something that we've always said, which is that we're a global company that happens to be based in the United States. So everything we do, we look at through a global lens. All right. Now, My favorite topic. So shifting gears for a minute. I think one of the most exciting parts of the media business is the shifting landscape that's happening in television. So I'm going to spend the next, half hour or so, maybe 20 some odd minutes if I watch the clicker down there, focusing on how we're continuing to drive change and add value to our clients and partners in what I believe is one of the greatest moments in the history of the media business, which is what's happening in television. But first, we talked about first principles. On the inventory team, this is how we look at the world. We hold this really near and dear to our hearts, which is that our mantra is to move fast and be first. We think about this all the time. And in practice, what this looks like is through an engagement with a CTV partner like HBO Max. HBO is arguably the gold standard of content out there. I think we've all probably recently watched a show on HBO. So HBO launched HBO Max in May of 2020, and they launched the AVOD service in the summer of 2021. And when they launched the AVOD service, they launched with some insertion orders, but when they were ready to launch programmatic, we were first. And why were we first? Why did they pick us as the launch partner? Because of all of those principles that we just talked about. Because we had been great partners to them all along the way. We'd helped them test their pipes early on before they were ready to launch. We were the first in the door. So when it was time for them to go to market with programmatic, we were their first partner. This is exactly how our inventory team thinks about every engagement that we have, not just in television, but in audio, digital out of home. Every new channel that we expand into, we're always thinking about moving fast and being first. And all of that serves this mission, which is we believe when our clients log into the trade desk, they should have access to every impression on every screen everywhere in the world. Now, that job will never be done. But it does serve our belief that at in-state, all things will be digital, and all things digital will be programmatic. So as long as we keep this out there as our North Star, and we believe those other two things, this will continue to be our North Star for the inventory team, coupled with move fast and be first. So I mentioned one of my favorite things to talk about, which is television. So nowhere are those two facts playing out more distinctly and more quickly than in the marketplace for television. So in a past life, I used to read a lot of scripts. Different story, different time, different presentation. But we could not have scripted the moment that's happening right now to create what I believe is the most powerful tailwind for our business that possibly could have happened. And that is what's happening in CTV right now. We anticipated this shift years ago. So as you guys may recall, we launched our CTV platform in the fall of 2017, almost 5 years ago. Now, we'd had 2 years of spend prior to that on the platform in CTV, but we kind of formally launched our CTV platform in the fall of 2017. Now, while we anticipated the shift of CTV, we couldn't have possibly predicted or anticipated the global pandemic. And that accelerated the consumer shift in CTV by probably 2 or 3 years. So in terms of what I was just talking about, all things will be digital. That shift is well underway in CTV, and it's not showing any signs of slowing down. I think at this point, the consumer has voted. We're now watching TV this way. So in other words, CTV is now the dominant form of TV. And that's not just me saying that. That's Nielsen and other companies saying that CTV is now the number one way that we watch TV in the United States. And the rest of the world is following quickly. So when you look outside the United States, Europe and other markets are also embracing CTV and programmatic, but I believe there's a big accelerator coming into these markets in the form of new entrants into the AVOD market. When you look at people like Disney Plus and Netflix, their footprints are global, right? They address homes well beyond the United States. So I think this moment right now is putting everyone in the European and broader, non-US television market on notice right now to start to figure out what their business is going to be as it relates to digital, as it relates to CTV, and as it relates to programmatic. Because the kind of duopoly, triopoly makeup of many of the markets in Europe now is about to be broken with these two entrants into the marketplace. So they're all going to have to figure out how to participate in the open internet, and many of them are well on their way. But I think this fact is going to accelerate the CTV curve outside the United States. One other area that's really interesting is what's happening in sports. So if you rewind the clock, sports was one of the reasons to keep your cable subscription or keep subscribing to linear. I think a lot of that's changed. And while sports is still kind of the stalwart of traditional television, if you look at like the highest rated shows of last year, 23 out of the top 25 highest rated shows were like NFL football. And that is still true on linear television. But it's also all moving into CTV. I still think it's incredible that you can log into the trade desk today. You can set up a campaign and go live with a campaign this Sunday in NFL football. 3 years ago, that would have been crazy. If I had stood on a stage like this and said, you know what, I think log into our platform and run an NFL football. Fox and all the rights holders of NFL football would have been like, never, that's never going to happen. That can happen today. Live sports has moved into digital. Live sports has moved into streaming. And the monetization of live sports has moved into programmatic. And everything we just talked about leads to this, which is an incredible opportunity for advertisers. 90 million households, billions of impressions, the ability to use data. Advertisers are embracing this opportunity, as they should, because I think this is the greatest moment. If you're an advertiser, this is the greatest moment in the history of the media business. I can now take my data and I can point it at the television screen. It's incredible. I can break free of age and gender. I can do so many more things now because of what's happened in the landscape. And the pool of supply is going to continue to grow. We talked about Netflix, we talked about Disney Plus, but as that pool of supply continues to grow, that just creates more opportunities for advertisers to do just that, to point their data at the television screen across a broader swath of inventory. And what's amazing here is that it also creates an extended and expanded opportunity for advertisers to manage reach and frequency holistically. This is a really important point. Managing recent reach and frequency holistically is in many ways the holy grail for a lot of advertisers. And even as this pie expands, the math still works with higher CPMs because we're being more data-driven in our buying. So I'm going to walk through an example. I wish I had these slides with me yesterday, by the way, because we were sitting with a large brand yesterday having this exact conversation, which is contrasting the kind of old way, or even in some cases current way of buying television, which is that I buy television from this broadcaster, and that broadcaster. In doing so, I create frequency silos. And so this broadcaster has no idea how many ads I served on another broadcaster because they're independent of one another, right? So in creating those frequency silos, this creates a problem for advertisers because as we experience this as consumers, this is the I'm seeing the same ad over and over and over again. That's because of this, because of all of these frequency silos. And so in this case, the number to focus on there is 40x, right? So I'm getting 40x frequency at 10x per broadcast network. But because we look at the entire universe of CTV, we're seeing from all of those broadcasters, we're seeing all of it. We can manage reach and frequency holistically, where all of this continues to be more efficient for the advertiser. Because I used to want to just talk to everybody 10 times a week or 8 times a week. I can't do that when I create all these frequency silos. But when I can look at everything holistically, I can do that. And I can manage everything much more efficiently and effectively. And as I mentioned before, even if the CPM is higher because I'm leveraging my data or I'm bidding into an environment, the math still works because the savings that I elicit on managing that frequency holistically still make it worth it. And we see this over and over and over again with every single advertiser we work with, every case study we run with everybody, that this continues to work. Holistic campaign management, biddable data-driven media buying, this is the direction of travel for television. I'm going to spend a bunch more time on this in a minute. On top of that, Samantha went deeper on this, but we're connecting the entire media landscape to retail data. So just to give a real-world example, what this means in the context of television is that my ads on Hulu or my ads on Peacock can now be linked to a sale at Walmart or a sale at Albertsons or a sale at Walgreens. When we start to illuminate that fact to a brand, you can just see their eyes light up like you've never seen. They're like, wait, my television investment, I can now link it directly to selling product at Walmart? Yes, that's exactly what we mean. This is a powerful combination that's never been possible at scale that is now possible today. There's a lot more work to do to wire up all of these retailers, but the snowball is starting to roll. So with the last 15 minutes, almost exactly, that I have, I want to zoom out for a second, and I want to talk about the state of the CTV marketplace. Because it is, as we've talked about, evolving under our feet. But I want to examine what I think are some of the dynamics that are underpinning the CTV marketplace right now and define what I think is the North Star for the TV business going forward. So first, a little bit of backdrop. So when I stood here several years ago, I talked about this concept, which is that we have major content consolidation happening. And that content consolidation, even 3 years ago, had already happened, and now it's continuing to happen, even most recently with Discovery's purchase of Warner Media. So as we predicted, this content consolidation continues. And interestingly, part of the strategy with many of these guys is to kind of fold distribution into kind of like super apps or whatever. Both Disney and Warner Media have talked about that, or Discovery Warner have talked about this. But despite all of that kind of content consolidation, there still is kind of this other challenge, which is that the landscape can still feel kind of fragmented, especially to people who don't spend their waking days obsessing over this like I do. The landscape can still seem pretty fragmented, especially as consumers when we're like, how come season 1 of Yellowstone's on Peacock, but season 5 is on Paramount? Like, I don't understand how that works. But it's really, from a consumer perspective, complex, but from an advertising perspective, it's really straightforward. And as I walk through this next bit, I think this will really underscore what our strategy is as it relates to inventory partnerships in CTV. So first, you've got this. So content is kind of king in all of this, right? Content owners control what I believe is the greatest content that we've ever had, probably in my lifetime, maybe even ever. And so the content owners are kind of the center of the universe in all of this. Now, they distribute that content downstream to a bunch of different partners, right? They work with OEMs and OS operators. They have their own apps, which also get distributed through here. They distribute content through virtual MVPDs. So there's a bunch of different outlets that they distribute content in. And then downstream from all that are a whole bunch of ad opportunities. And this is where it starts to get really interesting, because when you look at all of these ad opportunities, one thing that often gets talked about is that, well, aren't some of those kind of off limits? And that is to some extent true in that sometimes the operating systems get a couple of ads or a couple percentage points on the ads that they can sell. But the universe that we play in is this one, because of a very simple fact. which is that the content owners will today and forever control the majority of the ad rights downstream from them. Even with their negotiations with the operating systems, those inventory shares are coming down and down and down. There was even a dispute last week, I think, where somebody got turned off from one of these. But we play in this larger world because of that simple fact that I just mentioned. So as a result, our strategy remains unchanged, which is that we work directly with the content owners. We want to create the most efficient and effective route for our demand to reach a Disney or an NBC Universal. Now, oftentimes that'll include engagements on things like OpenPath that Jeff talked about, or UID2, as you've seen with Disney. But what we're after here is we want to create the most effective and efficient path to that content owner because they control the majority of the ad rights. And when they sell us that ad, they sell it in a device-agnostic way across their entire footprint. That's a really important point. So when we buy ads from Disney, we buy it across Roku and Amazon Fire and Apple TV and every distribution point that they have because they control the majority of those rights downstream. So our strategy, again, remains unchanged. We partner directly with the content owners. And one of the benefits of those relationships, by the way, is that when we have those conversations with the content owners, we get to go deep with them. We get to think about the future. We get to think about where is all of this going, and we get to align on the future of the marketplace. And I believe that the future of the marketplace in TV is both ad-supported and biddable. I think the ad-supported thing's like not even controversial anymore now that the announcements from Disney Plus and Netflix have happened. But I believe that the future of the CTV market is biddable. And the reason for that is that it allows advertisers to use data and it's good for the content owners. And I'm going to explain why. So right now, everyone kind of agrees with that statement. So this is kind of the typical life cycle of somebody launching a streaming app, which is that streaming app will launch. Sometimes they'll do some insertion orders or category exclusives. Then they'll slowly move into programmatic, sometimes with PG, and then ultimately move to biddable. So I think this is pretty typical. What's been fascinating to see over the last couple of years is that timeline has shrunk. So the distance between launch and then running biddable marketplace is gotten a lot shorter over the last couple of years. But this fact still remains, which is that when we look at all of those distribution points and all of those ad opportunities, and you look at that CTV TAM that Jeff showed in the pie chart, there's still quite a bit of it stuck in this direct sales insertion order mode of bidding, with only about a quarter of it being in biddable. So, in other words, despite a lot of momentum, most of CTV is still kind of stuck on this on-ramp. So I'm going to take the next few minutes and explain why I'm pretty optimistic that the entire industry is eventually going to merge onto that freeway, hopefully with less traffic than that one. So first, a little bit of backdrop in programmatic. So just to provide, Dave actually showed us a similar thing, but this is kind of the old world, right? This is when the publisher gets to pick the ads. There's no buy-side decisioning. Everything just kind of runs, oh, I hope I get the ads I wanted, and then I get some reporting later on. That old world is kind of a pre-programmatic, non-decisioned world. This is what programmatic brought to the table. Data-driven, I get to choose as a buyer which ads I want. I get to use my own data. So over the next couple slides, I'm going to use some actual data from our platform to illustrate why I think it is inevitable that this is the future of CTV, biddable, not the old way. So first, let me just orient us here on what we're going to look at. So on the vertical axis, this is price, and on the horizontal axis, this is volume of bids. So we took a look in our platform basically to see what kind of the makeup of that demand is. And for the PG dollars that we have on our platform, typically they rest in a price range on average of about $18 to $23. Now, again, those are averages. Sometimes they're a little bit more. Sometimes they're not. But on average, that's where a PG campaign will transact from a CPM perspective. So then we said, well, outside of PG, let's just take a sample of bids across our platform into CTV over several hours on a single day and see what that looks like against this kind of price band of PG. And this is what that looks like. So again, this is a distribution of bids from our platform. They're bucketed in bins because otherwise this would be impossible to read because they also include volume. And so all of this is biddable demand on our platform from a single day. Now, you'll note, pretty obviously, most of that biddable demand, if not all of it, is coming in at a price point pretty significantly higher than what PG transacts at. Now, the tragedy of this and all these blue dots is we didn't win all of them. And so that is just crazy to me. So the buyer missed an opportunity to serve an ad to a high-value customer, and the publisher missed an opportunity to monetize. Now, the incredible thing about that is that that's just an inefficiency in the marketplace. That's going to get worked out, right? Because that will get solved. So when you zoom into this a little bit more, this is where the data to me the data shows something that's very exciting to me about the future. Because when you look at this, it's millions of bids at $60. It's millions of bids at $45. Significant premiums on top of what PG typically transacts at. So that missed opportunity, which by the way, if you do the rough math on that, it's like $1 million just in those two dots. And so that inefficiency in the marketplace, that's going to resolve. Because when those high bids come into the auction, the buyer is bringing their data, they're willing to pay that price, and it's waiting to be captured by an efficient marketplace. So to put a finer point on this, auction-based selling for CTV is the way of the future. There is no way that Netflix will be able to command the CPMs that they're talking about right now in marketplace in the future without an auction and without an underlying framework of identity to enable buyers to activate their data. The end state for premium content is an auction. And let's double click on that and explain why. So when we look at that price point of $60 and 4 million bids, how does that actually happen? So first of all, an advertiser brings their data into the platform. We then lookalike model that data and also leverage third-party sources and other value-added services in the client or in the platform to expand that audience, and then we point that audience at the universe of CTV. That right there is how $60 bids and 4 million of those happen, because we continue to bid and bid and bid on these high-value audiences on behalf of our clients, and they're willing to pay the price because they're going to talk to an audience that they care about. Buyers care way less about audiences defined by the seller, audiences defined by the broadcaster or someone else. They want to talk to the audience as they understand it. And this is why I'm so optimistic that the future of CTV is biddable, because the demand is there. There's just inefficiencies in the marketplace that have to be sorted out. Incidentally, this is also where the forward market is built. You heard Jeff talk about this not only on our last earnings call, but also earlier today. Dave mentioned this as well. A guaranteed framework of buying in a biddable environment. This is where it's going to be created. It's going to be created right here, where all of these bids exist. All of this demand exists at a premium price point where the buyer is willing to pay it. We just need to create the market for that right there to replace the upfronts. And that's the future that we're building for in television. Now, here's the good news, and this is why I'm optimistic on top of everything we just saw, which should also give all of us a lot of optimism that that's the direction of travel. But when you look at what's happening in the marketplace, a lot of the broadcasters are already thinking about things in these terms. They have reconciled with all of that data that I just showed, and they have said, I have got to figure out how to capture that opportunity. So when you look at somebody like Disney, they've integrated UID2. They're on a mission publicly to automate over half their business in the next couple of years. They're reshaping their tech stack to capture that opportunity that we just looked at. Netflix has the opportunity to build this, by the way, from the ground up, from day one. They can build the marketplace for their inventory the right way from day one. And again, the only way that Netflix is going to be able to command the CPMs that they hope to get to continue to monetize their content is through an auction model just like that, because that's where those CPMs live. They live in a biddable, auction-based environment. So that's why I believe the future is bright for data-driven, auction-based media buying of CTV at in-state, because, like I said a few minutes ago, all things eventually will be digital, and all things digital will be programmatic. That's the direction of travel of CTV. And ironically, it's also the reason for this, which is why I don't think any CTV or broadcast company can form a walled garden strategy in connected television. The landscape is nearly perfectly fragmented, where nobody has dominant market share in television. So as a result, unlike marketplaces for search and social and things like that, nobody can be too draconian in the way that they approach the marketplace. And furthermore, premium content is expensive, and in order to monetize that content, you've basically got two options, subscriptions or ads. And the best way to monetize the ad part is what we just saw, which is a biddable, auction-based environment for your inventory, because that's where the highest CPMs are that can continue to fund your content and continue to allow you to offer these AVOD services so that you can drive more subscribers. So I think it's going to be really difficult for anyone to swim against that tide, because I don't think it'll work that way, and no one has the market share to demand you to buy it another way. So as we look out ahead, I think the marketplace for CTV is going to thrive. I think the future of CTV is open. I think the future of CTV is biddable, and the future of CTV is global. And for all of those reasons, at in-state, I think, as Jeff said earlier, CTV and the open internet are going to command the first dollar of every media plan. And then the walled gardens as we know them today are going to be competing for the proverbial leftovers. Now, to end on one of those first principles I talked about, so we have a tradition at the trade desk that's been here since the day I started, which is that everybody who starts with the company sends out an intro email, and they just introduce themselves to the company. Now, I love reading these things because, back to something we talked about earlier, it just reminds me that we've all come from different places. We've all come from different walks of life. We've all come from different backgrounds to all be here right now for this moment. And as long as we keep challenging ourselves as a company to be thinking about things at in-state, and we stay focused on where we're heading, how we add value to our clients through our partnerships and the products that we build, and we continue to focus on building that future of the TV landscape that we just talked about, and we never lose sight of those first principles of objectivity, moving fast and being first, and accelerating change wherever we can, I think that is going to be the core of how we continue to drive the business forward, because we are all powering this collective inertia to move our industry forward and focus on that one simple fact, to empower the open internet. I feel lucky every day to be on this mission with everybody that works at the trade desk and every member of our team. So thank you guys so much for the time. And yeah, talk to you later.